Hey, what's going on, everyone? Joel Wallace here, and I've got another special guest today. My good customer, Mark. He's going to be joining us, and he is doing something quite unique and doing guitar lessons through Zoom. So we're going to dive in and check out, see what he's got going on here. What's going on, Mark?
Hey Joel, how's it going?
Going all right. How you doing?
Doing good, doing real good.
Awesome. So I appreciate you, coming on and letting us all check out what you've got going on in your setup and how you're doing things to live stream to accommodate this whole pandemic situation. Since I imagine you can't do guitar lessons in person now.
Yeah, it actually, the whole pandemic was a big shift for me. So beforehand, I had three sources of income. I mean, I taught guitar lessons, but I did also a lot of studio production work, and then there was money from live gigs. And the studio production work and the live gigs obviously went away, and all the guitar lessons moved online. And then there's been a few in person, outside, wearing masks, socially distance, all this stuff throughout the pandemic, but it's been mainly online. So yeah, it's been a big adjustment for me.
And it's all been a huge adjustment for like everybody and just trying to figure out how do we keep going and living and getting
Exactly.
our jobs done. So, but yeah, so tell me a little bit like, when you first started with setting up your studio or just being able to connect online, what were you using to be able to do the guitar
Sure,
lessons with
yeah.
your students?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, backing up a little bit, I have to say I feel very fortunate that I did have a lot of students before this started, and a lot of my colleagues had shifted over to only touring, and obviously I feel very fortunate that I was able to keep some income stream going. But when this started, as you know, getting any kind of webcam or video equipment was just about impossible. And I had a old Microsoft webcam that was a piece of junk that worked sometimes and not others, and then a Nikon DSLR, which is a great DSLR, but it was an older DSLR, and it didn't really wasn't really set up for video streaming. But I was able to use an app called SparkoCam that would allow me to use that DSLR as a webcam. I had to hack the firmware to get a clean HDMI out, and it still gave me a cropped image. So it was far from ideal, but it worked. Um, and one convenient thing about it was I could put a zoom lens on it, and I could reach over and zoom in when they needed to see something on the fretboard or with the right hand picking or whatever, and then zoom back out. But that was what it was like when the pandemic started.
So just one camera and a microphone, and that's that.
Microphones I had plenty of, right? So we're actually sitting here in my recording studio, and I'll give you some overview shots in a little bit here. But I'm sitting in front of a big mixing console, and upstairs I've got a locker full of microphones, right? So the sound side was not a problem. It was the video side that was challenging when we started.
Yeah, and I remember that when you first called me and looking into like expanding and like how do I get away from this, and so then we had looked at a few options and we narrowed it down to doing the ATEM Mini from Blackmagic with the Aida cameras. Would you be able to show us like a tour of this setup?
Sure. Let me give you a tour. Now, you're looking at an Aida camera right now. Unfortunately, the only camera that I can pick up and move around easily is a GoPro. So we're going to switch over to a GoPro here, and I
Okay.
will pick that up. And here is the GoPro view. So there you are. You can see this is my mixing console.
Wow, that thing is a
And
beast.
it is, yeah. This is basically a new car. If you have to go buy
What
one of
brand
these.
is that?
This one is made by Allen and Heath.
Oh, nice.
It was back when they still made analog consoles. It was made in England. Really nice console. All the faders are motorized. It's all automated. Off to the sides, there are racks and racks of gear. You can see over on this side, there's more racks over there. keyboards over there. There's a laptop for controlling my ATEM. There's my ATEM. There's another room behind me that you can't really see because there's some partitions there, but there's more keyboards over there. Um, that's the microphone I'm talking to you on.
What mic you got in there?
This is an AEA R84. It's a ribbon mic.
Ooh.
Really smooth, beautiful sounding mic. They're very detailed mid-range, and it really smooths out the high end. They have lots of proximity too. Proximity is that when you get closer to a mic, it gets more bassy in the response. So, given that this mic has lots of proximity, I can place it fairly far away and not have a thin sound.
That's
This,
cool. And
this way, it's not in the video frame. Like your setup is great because you don't have to have a guitar in front of you.
yeah.
But if you were teaching with a guitar in front of you, that'd be a problem, right? Um,
Yeah.
so I've got a couple of guitars down here, but most of my guitars sit upstairs, and I just grab them when I need them. Drum kit. Um, I'm using a bunch of my par stage lights for video lighting, rather than going out and buying video lights, because hey, I wasn't going to be needing my stage lights anytime soon.
Right? Put them to use, right? Versus paying for storage.
Exactly. Exactly. So there you go. That's a quick overview of the setup.
So where did you originally have your DSLR camera
So
stationed
my
at?
oh yeah, let's talk about the cameras. Thanks. So the DSLR was originally right where this Ada is, and it was big and clunky. It kind of obscured part of the screen. It got the job done, but it was bigger than it needed to be. And again, given that it was an older DSLR, it didn't output the full frame on the HDMI.
Sure.
So right now, I've got three Adas set up. There's this one right here, which is the main one you were seeing me on earlier. Over here, this one is set to zoom in on the fretboard so students can see my left hand when I'm playing. And over here, we've got a third one that's set zoomed over to the right hand so they can see the right hand picking when I'm playing.
Oh, that's cool. So then you can just switch between the sources if you need to like,
Right.
hey,
Yeah.
move your finger more this way, and you can show them, that close up versus like, hold on, let me zoom in, and then like, okay, and then
And then
zoom
do the
back.
picture in picture, exactly. So this is the ISO Pro, which I find really useful when I have to record a video for a student. Uh, so you just hook up a drive to the USB output, and boom, I get my four camera angles, and then I can edit it later, right?
Mhm.
This is just a plain ATEM Mini, and I sometimes I'll daisy chain them if I need more than four inputs. I've got a laptop over here, which is not the laptop that we're using right now for this call. At the moment, it's just controlling the ATEM, but sometimes I will share the screen on the ATEM here when I need to pull up some music or something, a chart for the students.
Yeah.
Over here, by the way, down in the rack, sorry for the glare from the light, the bottom, like four rack units in that rack is the PC that we're talking on right now. Above that's the power supply for the console, A to D converters, all kinds of good stuff. But
Nice.
anyway, so there you go. And here, I'll put this back over. And just to kind of show you how the cameras are set up. So if I pick up a guitar, so here I am talking to the students.
Hmm.
If they need to see the left hand, here's a close in on the left, and then here's a close in on the right.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, it definitely takes it to the next level. That's for sure.
Absolutely. And, of course, you can do picture in picture and all that good stuff. So,
Right. One thing too, actually, we're both using Ada cameras, and something I can notice just with like going between the GoPro and the Ada camera is that you don't see as much the distortion on the sides with it too. Um,
exactly. Yeah.
the
And
other
by the way,
thing,
that GoPro, that's a Hero 7 Black, and it's in the linear mode. So that's as good as it gets for the GoPro. Right?
right?
You
And
try to
that's
go
a
wide with the GoPro, it's going to be a lot worse.
Yeah, and with the GoPros too is like I see a lot of people wanting to use GoPros in their setup, and I totally get it, using what you have, but even like the linear mode, I think that digitally zooms in, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe you're right. I believe it's cropping the sensor when you go to the linear mode on the GoPro.
Yeah.
Because there's certainly nothing there to mechanically alter the lens, right? That's how else. I don't know how else they would do it.
Yeah. And then like you can actually see, let me pull up, I've got a second camera, but just for those who haven't seen these cameras, you can actually see that it has a zoom. So I have a zoom in the back and then I have focus in the front. So
Mm-hmm.
we're not actually digitally zooming. So, and then now you can plug it directly into the wall. You don't need to have a, rely on battery or do the USB to power source and power your camera that way. So there's a lot of benefits to using these Ada cams over a GoPro, that's for sure.
One of the cool things about the Ada cams is they're all C-mount lenses. So Ada sells some very nice lenses, and I'm using their lenses. But it looked like you had a some other C-mount lens on yours. That didn't look like one of the Ada ones.
So this one's actually the 4K.
Ah, okay. That's why.
So yeah, this is just the model
Okay.
above yours, and this Ada lens is a 3.6 to 11 millimeter.
I'm using a 2.8 to 12. I've got two of those. And then, hang on, I'll go look at the other camera. Well, so two of the 2.8 to 12s. And then if we come in here, one of mine has it goes up to 50. It's a 5 to 50. Yeah, well, all these Ada lenses have iris adjustments on them as well. But then you've got all the third-party lenses you can use too, because it's just a C mount.
Yeah, they're sweet cameras and just they're so small and you can really tuck them away. And, just like when you're showing off where you had your DSLR, I could see where that really kind of blocks part of your screen, and
Absolutely.
whereas now you have, it's just a box about the same size almost as a GoPro, and you can easily hide those. Or, even if you were to do like a live show and like the drum kit, you can easily stuff one of those into like the kick drum there or by a cymbal.
Absolutely.
You
Well, the
know,
other thing too is they're so small and light. I don't know if you noticed, but I've got these all on little bitty cheapo ball mounts because you don't need anything big to support it.
right. Yeah, barely
Whereas with the
illuminating.
DSLR, I had a whole tripod set up behind the console there, just to hold the DSLR, right?
Right.
And which was an adventure in and of itself. But the Ada is very easy to place wherever you want and very unobtrusive. I've been very happy with them. I do have something else to show you, another tool that I use on the audio side.
Ooh, nice. Okay.
So Zoom audio has gotten a lot better over the last year, but it doesn't sound as good as some of the other options out there. So usually with my students, I will stream audio to them through a service called Audio Movers. And here I'll share my screen with you. So what you're looking at here is my digital audio workstation software, which there are tons of different video or digital audio workstations out there. But what we're using here is a plug-in in that DAW called Audio Movers, and this will send low latency, high definition audio to anyone that you give the link to. And you see here on the quality, I can send 192 kilobit per second audio uncompressed, or slightly compressed, I'm sorry, 128, 96, and I can even just go to straight PCM, totally uncompressed audio at
Oh,
32-bit,
wow.
24-bit, 16-bit, right? I usually just leave it on the AAC 192, that's good enough. I can select the latency I want. Unfortunately, I can only go down to a tenth of a second, so it's not good enough for live collaboration in terms of two musicians playing together at the same time, but it's more than good enough for one way like what we're doing here.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and this is actually a subscription service. So you have to sign up an account, but you can sign it up by the day, by the week, by the month, or by the year. I have a yearly account and it's $100 a year, so it's not a big expenditure.
Yeah, less than $10 a month.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
But they
not
do
bad at
have
all.
monthly options, weekly options, even daily options. So highly recommend this. It's a huge improvement. I have done a few mixing sessions remotely for clients during the pandemic, and they all told me it felt like they were sitting in my studio.
Yeah, I could see that being very beneficial, especially in your industry, as like you need to be able to hear the note, was it sharp? Was it off? Did you even hit that note? And so it's
Exactly.
definitely very critical. I can see that, being very important there.
Another cool thing in my studio is I can adjust the lighting because I'm using LED par stage lights. So check this out. Share my screen. Here's the app that I'm using to control it. I've got four LED pars sitting in the front of my studio and four in the back. They all do red, green, blue, amber, white, and ultraviolet. So, for example, we want to warm things up. There's the amber. We'll pull the blue up, pull the blue down. Here, we'll go for a really green, sickening look. How about that? And I'll stop the share. So now I look like really
Music video.
like there's something wrong, like we're in a pandemic.
Right. Paranormal activities.
Yeah.
So, and
There
that's
we
all
go.
done through DMX control?
It's all DMX, indeed. Yes.
Cool. And what was the name of that software?
This is the software I'm using right now is just Freestyler. I've got different programs I use depending on what I'm doing with the studio, but Onyx is what I would normally use in a live situation. But here, Freestyler worked. But the LED pars are what really matter, and they're let's see, four of them are Chauvet and Gamma. That's right. Gamma's the ones in the rear. Those are the nice ones, which you can't quite see here. I'll switch cameras. Um, Here we go. You can see them on a
Oh
drumstick
yeah.
there, and you can see two more right there. And then it's going to kind of blow out the camera here, but there's one down there. It's got a diffuser on it, believe it or not. There's one up there. There's one there. And there's one over there under that piano. I was just going to show you one other thing in the studio here, by the way. There's a lot of sound treatment, and you can see
Oh
there's
wow.
panels up on the ceiling. They're spaced off the ceiling, maybe about, I don't know, 4 inches off, and they're about 6 inches thick. Um, there are sound panels, these big black monolith things. It's not that I'm a Stanley Kubrick fan. It's and I'm not a Stanley Kubrick fan, but anyway, uh, these are all sound absorption panels. There's some there, and what you see behind me, that's a wall of sound absorption panels. What most people don't realize in a small room, and why I say small room, I mean anything smaller than like a really good sized church, is that you get all kinds of standing waves in the room. The low frequencies bounce off the walls and come back, and you get standing waves such that at a certain spot in the room, certain frequency, the bass might disappear. And you move a foot or so to the right, or the bass player changes the note, and suddenly the bass is gone from disappeared to way too loud. And this is because of all the reflections in the room. A lot of people will get that egg crate foam and stuff, or you can go buy special expensive foam, put it on the walls. It does nothing for the lower frequencies. So you wind up with a very dull, muddy sounding room. When you treat a room, you want to treat the low frequencies. And when treating the low frequencies, you'll treat the mid-range and high frequencies at the same time. So all these are bass traps. It's very thick, very dense fiberglass insulation that's, of course, bagged and encased, right? Because we don't want to be breathing all those fibers.
Right.
And they are there specifically to trap the lower frequencies. They're very broad spectrum, so it traps all the frequencies. But we're targeting the low frequencies. That's why, in fact, I don't think I showed you here. See those things standing up at the corners, right? And then
Oh
down
yeah.
below my console, You can see there's a whole bunch, there's a gap there for the, the wall plug, but they're going all along the wall down there. And then you see there's foot controllers down here, by the way, organ pedals. There's all kinds of stuff in here. And the whole point is to control the low end. And you wind up with a very nice sounding room if you do that.
Yeah, that's actually something I think a lot of people forget. And even I'm sure you can hear it in my room. I have, no kind of sound dampening other than furniture that's in here. And that's actually why I use this mic, is to kind of help that, echo, not echo, the kind of large room kind of sound.
Well, I mean, you've addressed it by proximity. You've got a mic that's fairly close to your face. And of course, you've got a pop filter in front of that because otherwise you'd have to deal with plosives, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're dealing with a lot of the room that way. But obviously, that doesn't work when, if you got to sit here and hold a guitar in front of you.
Right.
They couldn't see, they'd see the microphone, right? And again, this microphone that I'm using has a lot of proximity. It has a lot of low end boost to it. So I can place it far away and not sound thin. So just to give you an example, go switch here. Again, sorry if I stand up slow, my back's a little bit out right now. But watch how the sound changes as I get closer to this microphone. I'm talking the same, I'm talking the same, I'm talking the same. And I don't know how much you can hear the low end getting deeper, right? As I walk away, that low end is going away, but there's so much of it there that it's not sounding thin like a lot of other mics would.
Right.
Another interesting thing about these mics, just tilt this here, is they have a figure 8 pattern. So they pick up very well in front and very well behind, but very poorly to the sides. They isolate to the sides. So if you have a source in the room that you want to get rid of, make sure the side is pointing to that source. So I'm going to keep my volume constant, my distance constant, and move over here to the side of the microphone, and you should hear my volume go down substantially.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And then now back in front. I wasn't changing distance or volume of my voice. I was just changing where I was, right? Aim this back down here.
That mic sounds really good. And, I love the ribbon mics. You don't see a lot of them to this day. Like,
Interesting thing about that. So in the days of old, like think of movies like Gone with the Wind, those studios had 2 microphones. The whole studio owned 2 microphones. And the microphone that was most commonly used, I should have brought one of them down here because I've got one, is an RCA R44. If you want to pause it for a second, I'll go grab one and bring it if you want to.
Sure.
Okay, hang on. I'll go grab one.
Sounds good.
So RCA used to make these mics, and back in the early 70s, I believe it was, RCA sold all of its stock, all of its rights, and all to a couple of the technicians that worked there, and that company became AEA. So these mics are still made today. This is the AEA version of the mic. This is about a $4,000 mic, so these aren't cheap, and they're not light.
That good sound.
Oh, they sound gorgeous.
Oh yeah, now I remember what that mic looks like.
Yeah, so I'm sure you've seen these before. And same company makes the one I'm using now. That's just a slightly smaller version. That mic is made, the R84 that we're using right now is about $1,000 mic, so much more affordable. So it's certainly not cheap, right? But yeah, these are about, I don't know, they're like 36 or 3,800 or something. I don't know. They're just shy of $4,000 last I checked.
Oh, that's cool. I love to hear that.
Oh, it's a gorgeous mic.
Just sounds like as real as you can get.
Oh yeah, no, very detailed. Well, if you go to my website, there's plenty of recordings you can hear with that mic. In fact, you can do some really cool things with this mic. There was a recording we were doing a few years ago that I think is still up on my website for a friend of mine. He had written this song, and he found this gal to sing it who was, I don't know, I think she was probably about 17 years old at the time. And she had a great voice, but definitely sounded young. And the song needed to sound very mature. So I stuck that mic in front of her, which gave a lot of proximity, and it made her voice sound more mature. So there's all kinds of cool tricks you can play in the studio.
Yeah, and it's just
Like,
insane how one microphone will sound, different for each person.
mhm.
Because like, say like, this microphone example. I mean, this is a cheapie, but like, like
Those Audio
say,
Technicas are great mics. So
yeah, I mean, this thing's pretty old, but like, I could, I might sound pretty good on this, and then you hop on it and you sound amazing, and then someone else hops on it and they don't sound as good. So it is pretty crazy to think, everybody sounds a little different on each mic too.
that's a good point. And sometimes the best mic is like $100 mic. I have recorded a lot of stuff with Shure SM57s. I was looking around to see if I had one laying around, but I don't. I know there's one on the drum kit over there, but uh, they are, pretty ubiquitous mics. You can get them anywhere new for $100. You can probably go on Reverb or someplace and find them used for $50 or something. I don't know. And they're great mics. And tons of vocals, guitars, drums, all kinds of things have been recorded with Shure SM57s. You could record a whole band with nothing but Shure SM57s. And it might sound better than using a $4,000 mic, depending on what you're recording.
Yeah, I believe that. Well, cool, Mark. Well, I really appreciate everything and taking the time. And I'll also I'll put the link to your website for everyone to check out. Or if you want to learn the guitar, hit this guy up. All right. Thank you, Mark.
Hey, thanks, Joel. Great
All
seeing
right.
you.
Take care.
Take care.